whakarongo ki te tangi a te korimako. Kōrero flowing out the hooker force. Kaupapa relevant, kaupapa out of bounds, kaupapa exigent, kaupapa paramount. Nā kona whakapiri mai ki te kaupapa tino whakahira hira whakarongo pi kari kari mai. Hare hare mai, o Taringa hare hare mai. We gotta gather up close everybody, gather up close everybody. Kani move that body, kani move that body.
E ngā iwi katoa me ki ngai taringa kua hoki mai anei kia māua e mihi atu nei nei mai hoki mai ki a Taringa.
Kia ora.
Te punua paho. Ai, kia ora.
Kia
Te
ora.
punua paho a te wānanga o te roa coming from the bustling metropolis of Te Awamutu. And here we are again, myself and my co-host.
Erica Sinclair.
Ai, tēnā koe.
This is my radio voice.
This is my radio voice. Hoi no, e mihi ana kia koutou. And we're with Iwi o te wiki I tēnei wiki.
Yeah.
And we have te tahi manuhiri kei runga I te toko waia. Kei runga I te waia. He's not on Skype, so e mihi ana kia koe kei taku rangatira Taku. Tēnā koe, Taku Parai, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, tēnā kōrua. Tēnei te mihi atu rā. Kia koutou me ai kei whakapau hoa te tehi kaupapa ki rātou mā. E rongo ana me ki tō kōrero o te ahi nei. Tēnā koutou, tēnā kōrua.
Tēnā koe.
E te iwi, Taku was talking to us about tana iwi, Ngāti Tama. And I was saying, I didn't know this side of Taku Parai. Taku mohi o kia koe hoa, ko tō taha Ngāti Toa. As you were saying in our conversation before, Ngāti Toa and Ngāti Tama intrinsically tied together. And some of that kōrero might come out afterwards. But thank you again for coming on Taringa today to come and share some kōrero about Ngāti Tama. Ka mihi kia koe.
Hi, it's good to be on your program today, guys. It's good to be able to be a part of knowledge sharing according to what has been shared with me over the years, and according to the genealogies and whakapapas and stories that have been shared over the years as well. And obviously today the invitation is to come and to sit and talk about Ngāti Tama.
Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
Have you got a kiwaha you'd like to share with everybody?
Ko te kiwa o te ahi nei, o nōku te whiwhi.
Nōku te whiwhi. Can you share with us your explanation of this kiwaha?
Nōku te whiwhi. To be honoured by, to be thankful for, to be grateful,
like
to
that.
share, and to be thankful for what we have. Nōku te whiwhi.
Wow, nōku te whiwhi.
Yeah.
That's your come on Taringa with
Nō
us today.
mātou te whiwhi.
Aye.
Ka pai.
There you go e te iwi, nōku te whiwhi. I'm fortunate, I'm lucky, I'm grateful. Throw it over to you, Erica. What's an example? How could you use that, nōku te whiwhi?
Pretty much just how we used it before. Nō mātou te whiwhi or nōku te whiwhi. I'm grateful that we're able to talk to someone like Taku and gain some knowledge of what he knows for today.
Yeah. Or, someone might give you $2 to go buy a pie across the road and you'll go, oh, nōku te whiwhi.
Yep, all that.
So, koena te kiwaha o te wāne e te iwi, nōku te whiwhi. And you heard Erica use it in a different way. She used mātou, so you can say nō mātou te whiwhi. Nōku te whiwhi is when you're talking about yourself being grateful, and you could say nō māua te whiwhi. Or you could even be cheeky and say, oh, geez, those fellas, they got all the kōrero and they, oh yeah, nō rāua te whiwhi.
Nō rāua,
You can say,
yeah.
oh, well, they're fortunate to have got that kōrero. So there's all sorts of context you could use nōku te whiwhi in.
Yeah.
Ka pai.
Kia ora. Nō reira, e hua Ngāti Tama.
Ngāti Tama.
Yeah, tell us about Ngāti Tama.
Ngāti Tama, te rā te kaupapa o te ahi. Ia te iwi o Ngāti Tama. Well, as far as I can share, Ngāti Tama, the name Ngāti Tama derives from the chief navigator of Tokomori, Tama Ariki,
Kia ora.
and it's located basically, the kāinga of Ngāti Tama Tūturu is in the northern Taranaki boundary at around Potama that centralises the top of Taranaki and the boundary being the Moko River that extends onto Naniaputo, Tainui Waka.
Kia
So
ora.
across the Moko River into Ngāti Tama and their close relations with Ngāti Mutunga
Kia ora.
on that northern Taranaki boundary. Ki uta inland Ngāti Maru. And so Ngāti Tama takes its origins from there, has always been the turu, the kind of tuturu of Ngāti Tama, situated there in that northern Taranaki boundary between Tainui and Maniapoto Waikato. Over time, the intermarriages between Ngāti Tama and Ngāti Toa have been very, very close and has always been acknowledged by Toa, and a lot of Ngāti Tama, you'll find, have that close connection through marriage to Ngāti Toa and Ngāti Tama. They've been known throughout the years as, how I've been put it, they say while the rest of Taranaki slept, Ngāti Tama made safe the doorway into the rohe of Taranaki. There was a little cheeky story I was told by an uncle.
Oh, yeah.
He said while the rest of Taranaki slept, Ngāti Tama ensured the front door was safe.
Kia ora.
Cool.
And same with Ngāti Mutunga, their relations. So you have all that maunga, all that iwi, all that hapu, the maria, the tini me te mono, ngā hapu, ngā iwi o Taranaki, heading down to as far as Ngā Rauru, Tangahoi, and Pakakoi. In the middle, you have the Ngā Chirua, Ruanus, Pukatapus, and Tiateaua, all through central Taranaki in the south. The origins toko maru waka, Tamariki te tūpuna riki. Pautama is where the kind of tuturo of Ngāti Tama lays, and I think that's identified today at a place called Pukearuhe.
Okay.
Yeah, Pukearuhe is where essentially in today's context is a gathering place as well, in that proximity around Pautama, Mōkau area, Pukearuhe. It's also found in the top of the South Island, the same descendant. And that's a journey undertaken by Te Pōho Kitarangi,
yes.
the paramount chief of Tama at that particular time during the 1820s, 1810s, right through to the 1835s. There's a connection of histories there. The journey south by Ngāti Tama was an interesting journey. And we've got to realise that down through Tamariki, the whakapapa can, at one stream, the whakapapa can lead to a marriage between whakataki of Ngāti Tama and a Ngāti woman called Hine Wairoro. And they had a son called Te Pōho Kitarangi, and they had another son, second son called Taku.
Oh, really?
Kia ora.
And then they had another younger son, brother called Rangi Takaroro. And then they say that Te Kaiaia or Taringa was a brother as well.
Oh, Taringa
But on the other side of that, Tuakana to the more was a chief called Raparapa. Raparapa was very much at Te Pō, Taku were very much involved in the Taranaki skirmishes with Tainui and Maniapoto, very much a part of that, that boundary kaitiakitanga stuff. And then when the heke came down, Ngāti Toa's heke, te heke Wairaro, when that sort of came through Taranaki at the time, it came down obviously in 3 stages and then eventually ended up on the Kapiti coast. Well, some following years, Te Pōho brought Ngāti Tama down. They settled for a short period at Oho on the Kapiti coast. They got into a bit of conflict with Ngāti Raukawa, our whanaunga, only around because they came down a wee bit later after the major heke. And they came down, and the ones that were already here were quite protective of the area that they had managed to take hold of, and they were quite sort of weary of how our chief Ngāti Tama was going to look after them. Basically, they were thinking that he might spoil them and give them all the primary land because of the close connection. And so they came into Oahu, they moved along the Kapiti coast, and then along with a bit of Tatiawa, a bit of Raukawa, a bit of Rarua, there was a combined force that went across to Tauihu, across to the top of the south. And the remnants of that excursion was that Ngāti Tama went into Waka Puaka, and then they shifted across to Golden Bay and set a primary kainga up there. And it was from that point that Te Pōho led an invasion army, Upetoa, down to the bottom of the South Island.
That's a big journey.
That was a big journey, and a guy wrote a book about it in the 30s. What was his name? I had a copy of that old book. I just came across it, and it was one of the most sort of outstanding educational reference to Pōho's journey.
Right.
It was only a little red book that he undertook. He described it as one of the most adventurous, courageous, unbelievable undertaking for any sort of group of people at that period in time. He pulled his wakas over the Southern Alps, made letters out of flax, out of harakeke, pulled his canoes up over the Alps and came down through all the different tributaries that flowed down through the Southern Alps. It was an incredible journey.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
It was an incredible journey. And they warred with different factions heading down the middle of the Alps down to the bottom of the South Island until they were finally sort of met their doom under a surprise attack by, obviously, Ngaitahu, led by other chiefs, but mainly Taiaroa.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Taiaroa. And there, and getting back to Parramatta, the four brothers, Raparapa, Te Pōho, Taku, and Rangi Takaro, Taku married a woman called Kauhui. And that's a Taranaki Tuituri name, around Ngāti Runu.
Tika.
And they had a son called Parramatta. And Taku died, and Te Pōho, the older brother, married Kauhui and took on Parramatta as a son. In the Māori language, we don't have no chips or quarters.
Yeah.
Or what is a son's a son.
Yeah.
A tuahine is a tuahine, a kuia is a kuia, and a koro and a rangatira is a rangatira. No halves, no chips. And so he took on Parramatta as his adopted son, his whāngai son, and raised him.
Yeah.
And Parramatta became his lieutenant in battle. And he became a very, very strategic and quite a powerful warrior on the battlefield. And he became Te Pōho's lieutenant. So when Te Pōho undertook the journey south, what happens is when they got finally down to a place that I think it was Taumitu, right nearly down towards the bluff.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They were ambushed and most of them were killed. Te Pōho was killed, but they kept Parramatta alive and married him to a woman called Ngāmiam.
Kowai?
A Ngātahu woman called Ngaitahu. She was the daughter of Taiaroa.
What was her name again, Taku? Just missed that.
Ngāmiam. N-G-A.
Ngāmiana.
N-G-A-M-I-A-N-G-A. Ngāmiam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
And Parramatta was married to her, and that was around the security, a bit of insurance, just in case the word got back and a force came down to avenge those deaths. So if they had children, they were then half Ngāti Tama, half Ngātahu. So it was like an insurance policy.
Tatau Pōnam. Tatau Pōnam.
Yeah, Tatau Pōnam. And so they married them all together, and they referred to it as as that Parramatta was held in house captivity, married off to Ngāmianga and had their children. And he was down there, they were down there for about 7 or 8 years. And in the meantime, back at Waka Puaka, their Kauhui had heard the news and had sort of accepted that all of Ngāti Tama particularly that warrior war party with all those chiefs in it had been killed, had perished. And so she then inherited all the Ngāti Tama Waka area, as well as anything that Te Pōho had authority over.
Wow.
But what did happen at the outset of them hearing that the other outlying tribes of that area, that Paramata and Te Pōho and the Opetoa had been killed and met their death down the bottom of the South Island by Ngāitahu, they then started to, become problematic to Kauhue and all those that were left there.
Yes.
To the point that she actually was sort of pushed out and stood over. And in terms of her endeavouring to hold on to their landholding.
Ka roha.
Yeah, and one of the prominent chiefs that stood out around that sort of display, that behaviour, I won't mention his name, but he was the primary instigator of that sort of behaviour over Kauhue and the rest of Tama that were left there. But suffice to say that after 7 years down in Ngāitahu, Paramata was escorted back with mana to Wakapuaka. So they say Tuhawaiki of Ngāitahu was one of them, Taiaro of Ngāitahu were some of the paramount chiefs of Ngāitahu that took Paramata back to his homeland at Wakapuaka. When Te Pōho took his Opetoa down south and they were ambushed and it was perceived that all was killed, Taiaro keeps Paramata alive and marries him off to his daughter Ngāmianga. And so their children became a buffer. They became takawaina, what we call takawaina. They became buffers of marriages. So, say, for instance, some more Tama and Ngāti Toa come down and avenge their ambushing, their deaths of those Rangatira. The children of Ngāmianga and Paramata became that buffer, to keep war away, to allow, to stop that war, that vengeance.
Yeah.
Simply because, you'd be killing somebody yourself.
Yeah, they'll be put in an awkward situation.
Yeah, and that's what they call, they usually use it with marriage, they call takawaina marriages. And so what happened then, that everyone back at Wakapuaka, Golden Bay, thought that Te Pōho and all of them had been wiped out. And so some bad behaviour, particularly some paramount chiefs, came forth to the forefront, and they began to stand over and treat Kauhue quite poorly in terms around what was left to her landholding, in terms of landholding. And they wanted it all back and try to take it all sorts. But little did they know that eventually, sooner or later, that Ngāitahu, Tuhawaiki and Taiaro and others, they escorted Paramata back to Wakapuaka with his wife Ngāmianga, who was Ngāitahu, and their children. Not long after they had left, Paramata figured out the lay of the land and what had happened, and he wasn't too pleased with it. So he ended the life of the primary person that was causing his mother, Kauhue, a lot of grief. He sorted that out, let's say.
Yeah.
And Paramata also, don't forget, one side was Toa, one side was Tama. So on his Toa side, he would come back and forth from Takapuahi to Wakapuaka to Golden Bay. And he was acknowledged as a chief between both camps.
Oh, wow.
Back on his Ngāti Tama side, on his Ngāti Toa side, he was acknowledged as that and understood, and under no circumstances was he treated otherwise. As far as we were concerned, he came from the Ngāti Tama sort of senior lineage, senior whakapapa line. And then Pōho also had other children, the wiki, Te Pōho, wiki Tipo, all that family, all that line as well as Paramata's line as well. And so Ngāti Tama becomes established in Wakapuaka, and that was some 17,000 acres that extended from the outskirts of Nelson right into the Whangamoas and onto the coastline.
Are the Whangamoas those big, tall mountain hills?
Trees, pine trees, mountains with a highway in it.
Yeah. Heading over to Picton, eh?
Yeah, the ugly drive.
No, yep, cool, I know the one.
and then obviously over in Cloudy Bay, under Cloudy Bay, Golden Bay, there's also a paramount Ngāti Tama stronghold, kind of tūturu.
Yeah.
And so the whakapapa is deeply entrenched in those two areas. And the familiar names for that Ngāti Tama, Paramata, Te Pū, Ōkau, were sort of blanket of genealogy. In both camps, you'll find the names, the tipena names, but it comes from Andrew Zoom's grandfather. Back to Huria Mātanga, Amo, then you go into the other side of the whakapapa, which is the Ward Holmeses. On the other side there, the Masons. There's a whole sort of gambit blanket of whakapapa that sort of cements itself both in two areas, but yet one people.
Kia ora.
And the two areas are not very close either.
No, well, you got North Taranaki,
Yeah.
and then Te Tauihu o Te Waka.
But even from Waka Puaka to Onetahua, they're both on the opposite sides of Te Tauihu.
Yeah.
At least they're on the same island, eh?
Yeah, true that.
And if you go down to Waka Puaka, especially to around where the main cable comes across to the North Island, well, you can see why there was a transition kind of there as well for people coming from the north and south of both islands. And you can see why they put the cable there, because it was the shortest route.
Yeah. You can.
So our people went silly, they knew where the shortest route from both islands is, and obviously the Pākehās figured that out too with their class machines.
Yeah.
But our Tūpuna had already figured that out, that this was the shortest route. So there was a bit of transitioning post also there for a number of iwi that would come, park up there, wait for the right tides and come across. But predominantly, that area, that space, was under the authority and under of Ngāti Tama. And so, that whakapapa line, it comes down to Paramata and Ngāmianga. They have a daughter, Ngāwaina. And Ngāwaina becomes a surrogate mother to Amu and Huria Mātanga.
Oh, right.
That Huria Mātanga, also known as Grace Darling.
Well, she's got an interesting story, eh?
Oh, incredible story. Incredible story. She was left the land holding. She was left the land holding some 17,000 hectares or acres. That's a bit of dirt.
Yes.
Right out to Waka Puaka there, that beautiful landscape out there.
Yep.
And that became hers. And, it's a story of whakapapa, inheritance, and also in there stories of power, control. And what's missing really out of that story was the true essence of whanaungatanga and manakitanga. Because Huria Mātanga, she married a man from Te Atiawa Waikanae. His name was Hemi Mātanga.
Kia ora.
And he was the brother of Wee Porata.
Oh, kia ora. Te kākākura.
Te kākākura. They both, came from the Stumps, whalers from Kapiti or the Kapiti coast. So half Pākehā and half Māori.
Oh, yeah.
And so they understood both worlds, and they could walk in both worlds quite comfortably. They knew the tikanga on the Māori side, and they understood the tikanga of the colonial government or the officers of this different law. And so what happened was, out at Waka Puaka, there was our family living there. Huria's cousins were all living out there. She marries Hemi Parata, which really it wasn't sort of au fait or supportive or showed the hand of manakitanga to Huria's whanaunga. And actually didn't look after the moroa, and I think that's the kindest thing I can say about that relationship. He was only interested in the economic gain out of the land.
All of that dirt.
All that dirt. And what came with that was because they had so much whenua, Pākehās became interested. They held garden parties and they mingled with the Pākehā fraternity of Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole lot of different influences and a whole lot of different unbalanced, balanced sort of kaupapa going on around that relationship. You know, then one day on a bad night, a ship gets shipwrecked just out of Waka Puaka called Delaware. We call it Waka Puaka, Pākehā named it Delaware Bay.
Delaware Bay, yeah.
Yeah, where the ship went down. And she had believed to run out a line, a rope, tied it to the ship and allowed all except one of the ship's crew make it to land, make it to safety by holding on to this rope.
Yeah, and this was in the middle of the night too, wasn't it?
This was in the middle of the night.
Freezing,
yeah.
and she swam out there and saved them.
Yeah, and she was known, you know, in the Pākehā fraternity, as Grace Darling, you know, Grace Darling. And she was acknowledged for her heroic achievement on that night, and she was also acknowledged for her bravery, and not only her bravery, she was acknowledged for her beauty, and not only her beauty and bravery, she was acknowledged for her whakapapa, her lineage.
Yeah.
Simply because if she hadn't had those ingredients, if she hadn't had those traits, she wouldn't have had that amount of land.
True.
Kia ora.
You know, as an inheritance. So the Ngāti Tama, you know, you're right, extends from Pukearuhe in the north of Taranaki, north of Waitara, stayed for a period in Wellington here in Tupukutiga, and went across to the top of the South Island with the invasion forces, along with Ngāti Toa, Ngāti Rārua, Ngāti Koata, and other Taranaki Tiatiawa, went across to the top of the south and managed to stake or drive a stake in the ground, and has been there ever since. And they, to today's context, they have a relationship, working relationship and acknowledgement, and have become one of the 8 sort of tangata whenua, mana whenua of Te Tauihu. So you have Ngāti Apa and Blendon, Ngāti Rārua, Ngāti Tiatiao and Picton, then you have Ngāti Kuia, then you have Ngāti Koata, Ngāti Tama, Ngāti Rārua, and Rangitani is the 8. And then also Waitahu has an interest there too as well, at the top of Te Tauihu. So Tama has a long sort of proud and strong history from the north right down to the top of the South Island. Those key whakapapa strands from Whangataki and Hine Wairuru, which connects most of Ngāti Toa through into Ngāti Tama. And it's been a journey of establishment in the 30s, and it's also been a journey of holding on to that establishment and holding on to the rights that Ngāti Tama have in Te Tauihu.
No maua te whiwhi, we've been just sitting here, we haven't had to ask any pātai. You've answered all the pātai roto I taku ngākau, and even some of, you touched on some like Taringa Kuri and others, and if some of our listeners would have listened to the kōrero with your whanaunga Huanga Kahu, and because he talked about Ngāti Toa, and he made big mention about Ngāti Tama, and, you know, me kore ake a Ngāti Tama, nā Ngāti Tama, Ngāti Toa i āwhina. I roto I ngātau. So, it's been nōku te whiwhi, no maua te whiwhi ki te ata whakarongo.
No
mātou. Ki ngā kōrero's beauty.
Well, hopefully that sort of made some sense and sort of aligned, you know, the journey down, the ability to make a decision to come south. You know, and I'm always told by my uncles up there in Ngāti Tama that they were a proud people, like many, but they were proud. Te Pūo was an acknowledged fierce sort of warrior and wasn't one to be all hard around.
Kei roto katoa e rā pūmanawa o ngā tūpuna I a koe e hoa, e rongo ana kua tino rangatira māua I a koe, I tō whakai mai ki te kōrero. O tira kua rangatira ngā mano Taringa. We've got listeners all across Aotearoa, te ika Māui, te Waipounamu, and across the world. So we've got listeners in Germany, South America.
Ahitereiria.
Yeah, all over the place. So,
all over the world.
Whakapāho tō reo. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Who knows, there might be some Ngāti Tama abroad listening to this kōrero.
There could be.
And I've learned heaps.
Tāpai.
Yeah,
No.
I've learned heaps too.
Nō reira, taku e te rangatira, e mihi ana ki a koe, kua rangatira māo, tira mātau i a koe, i ngā kōrero ko puta i a koe, ngā kōrero tuku iho, o mātua tūpuna, and ngā manaakitanga ki runga ki a koe.
Tēnā kōrero me ki ai tunu atu ki au, ka taia me ki te kōrero kia kōrero me ki a rātou, i runga atu i tō tātou nei hōtaka, nō rea ngami hinu i kia koutou. Whaira wātu.
Tēnā koe hoa, hei kona mai.
Hei kona.
Well, there was lots of kōrero in there, and not only the kōrero about Ngāti Tama, but what I would like koutou, the listeners, is to think about some of the tikanga that we didn't really go into, but he touched on in terms of the marriages.
Yeah.
So tatau pounamu.
Yes, can you explain what that is? Because I was wondering when that got mentioned.
Translated as the greenstone door. And a tatau pounamu should be a rongo taketake, and rongo taketake is a forever lasting peace, or peace that has been affirmed.
Yeah,
and
hohonu.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and usually it is done so with a marriage.
Yeah,
And that's he rongo taketake tērā, so that's referred to as tatau pounamu.
tatau pounamu.
There were other ways of initiating or instigating tatau pounamu. Could be the exchange of taonga, and these taonga would have some tino mana nui e nei taonga. They would have quite a bit of mana, and they would be exchanged. And the other one would be the exchange of toto, of blood.
Really?
In marriage. So, yeah, that's tatau pounamu. And then he talked about takawainga.
Yes.
That these would be the intermediates acting between two iwi, sometimes more.
Yeah.
He talked about when, I think it was Taku who died.
Passed away in
and then
Te
Te
Puoho.
Puoho ki te rangi took his wife for his wife, and then brought up his son.
As his son.
Again, that's very Māori.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got nannies and aunties who actually, when their husband died, and an uncle, he took her to be his wife. So that's a tradition throughout te ao Māori.
Yeah.
And it was about looking after that wahine, keeping her in the iwi, and looking
And the
after
kids.
the kids.
Yeah.
And they were going, and then they might have other children. So that was some other things. There was lots of kōrero. The
there was
kōrero
lots.
about huria and her whakapapa.
Yeah.
What was interesting was the story about huria and how she saved
There was a shipwreck of
the Delaware.
yeah.
But there seems to be a tradition in that, I don't know, there's a lot of stories in Te Moa Nā Raukawa, Cook Strait, for want of a better, let's just call it Te Moa Nā Raukawa, the bit of sea between the North and South Island.
Yeah, it's a way more beautiful name.
Yeah, there's kōrero about Hene Poupou.
Is she the one that swam from Kapiti to Te Tauihu?
That's Te Rau o Te Rangi.
Oh, okay.
That's Hene Poupou. She swam from Te Tauihu over towards Te Ika Maui.
Yeah.
And then you've got Te Rau o Te Rangi, who was Ngāti Toa, and she swam from Kapiti inland. And then you've got Huria Matenga, so you've got this tradition, seems to be, there must be some energy down there.
Yeah, and they're all women too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Shout out to the ladies.
Wahine toa, he wahine toa ine. So I really enjoyed that kōrero. I enjoy all the kōrero, but there were lots of other things.
He gave a real in-depth look at the whakapapa though.
Yeah.
And it was really cool for me that he knew all the names. Nō nā te whiwhi, that he knows all of that kōrero. I could only wish to know all of that kōrero about my own whakapapa.
Well, different contexts. I mean, today, we pick up a book and we learn when we want to, whereas Taku, I know, has been brought up around the old people. And when you commit your life to it, and when you've been brought up in it, and it's a Māori
It's like
it's
second
pedagogy. You're hearing the kōrero tuku iho all the time, you know. So yeah, it's very different. And when it's your own people, things, you soak them up a bit more.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate to have that kōrero with Taku, and it was entertaining as well. with that,
Well,
on that note,
hopefully our waiata o te wiki is just as entertaining.
because that's what it's about. It's about entertaining. So, e te iwi, we're gonna do our mihi whakamutunga I konei. We're not going to come back after the waiata. Have you got any closing kōrero e te tuahine?
No, just same old, same old. Really happy to have been able to listen to Taku and also to share this space with you again.
Ai, me koetahi. And just to remind everybody that these give you a bit of a taste and it's not the be-all, end-all. And, to keep himself, not step on anyone's toes, he referred a couple of times to, this is the kōrero according to what I know. And that's kōrero tuku iho. So, e mihi tonu ana ki aia, e mihi ana ki a koe, e mihi ana ki a tātai katoa. Anei te waiata o te wiki, tēnei mātou.
Whakarongo ki te tangi a te korimako. Kōrero flowing out the hooker force. Kaupapa relevant, kaupapa out of bounds, kaupapa exigent, kaupapa paramount. Nā kona whakapiri mai ki te kaupapa tino whakahira whakarongo pi kari mai. Hare mai, o Taringa hare mai. We gotta gather up close everybody. Gather up close everybody. Kani move that body. Kani move that body.
Taringa. He mea tuku nā te wānanga o Aotearoa. To listen to more episodes, search for us on your podcast app and subscribe. Taringa, whakarongo mai.